Hello everyone. As you watch this, we have, I mean the group, have decided to end Throne of Night. Which is to say, we have decided to stop playing. The question on everyone's mind is, of course, but why? And that is what I am going to try to explain and line out and sort of present the reasoning behind this decision. So, there are a number of inherent problems with running an adventure path such as this when the adventure path is not really finished. And I would say these are among the main reasons that we have decided to put this on hold indefinitely. Back when I read book 1 of Throne of Night, I was very excited. The book seemed interesting. It was another Kingmaker type game, and I do enjoy the Kingmaker type games a whole lot. It was set in the Underdark, which was unique. It had two paths: the good explorer path and the evil drow path. And being, seeing the success that Fire Mountain Games and Gary McBride specifically had with The Way of the Wicked, which we were playing at the time, and how fantastically fun it was to be evil in that one, I thought that being evil in a Kingmaker setting would be interesting as well. So, and so I rounded up a cadre of usual suspects and expert role players, and we set out to do so. But it could only last so long with only the books currently out. When we started, book 1 had come out like a month prior, and Fire Mountain Games promised that the next book would be a month out or so. That seemed good to me. A 2-month period between each book. That's enough time for to get into the current book, and enough time for me to read the next one when it comes out, to sort of prepare for that. And so we started playing. The problem was that Fire Mountain Games, the release schedule became more and more nebulous. It was unclear when the books were coming out, and this caused us a decent amount of headache. Me as a DM, and for the players as well. So what were the more specific problems? Well, Throne of Night is set up as a sandbox game, which means that the story is not really on rails as much as it is set in a box with walls. You don't have rails, you have walls instead. And this is all fine and good if the sandbox is large enough that you feel you're in control of this portion of the world. And this is, to my experience and the rest of the group's experience, where everything sort of became problematic. This became very apparent in book 2 when the kingdom building stuff started in earnest. There is not very much information about the world in these two books. There are very scant information. There are some hints here and there, but there is no information on, say, Teresia. There is no information on Clanonvolt, or any of the other like neighboring sort of gnome city-states. And so the lack of information, the lack of overview for me as a DM made it very hard to convey the feeling of a larger world to the rest of the group. The overarching sort of story of all of it was also a problem to convey, mainly because I, as a DM, did not and do not know exactly where the story is intended to go. There are very vague, the vaguest possible hints that there will be some things at a later date in books that have not been written yet. And so that made it very problematic for me as a DM to sort of present a clear threat or motivation or problem that needed solving, so to speak. So we had a world where it was very hard to embellish upon it. You know, if I decided to describe Cladenvolt or its nobles in a certain way, and then a future book came out and basically described it in a completely different way and used it for completely different and for the campaign crucial plot points, then everything would be a little bit screwed up. Same again for Teresia. There is no information at all about Teresia, and since Teresia is the main motivation for the Drow side of the story, it became a problem for constructing a threat, so to speak. Teresia is so far away and so hazy in its outline, you know, that making it a concrete threat or a concrete goal to work towards became very tricky. So there formed a disconnect in book 2 between the story that sort of Gary envisioned and the story that was actually there. Book 2 was very much more focused on the explorer side of the story. There were certain elements in that book that was very important for the explorers, but not really anything that was important for the Drow. And so again, it creates this disconnect. And since there's no more books out there, and no more books coming in with any certainty at all, motivation to continue sort of dropped. And mainly because we know it was going to end in a few sessions anyway, because we're going to run out of material. And so the group sat down and discussed this for several hours. And we have discussed this quite at length back and forth to try to decide like what should we do. We basically had a few options. We could play book 2 to its conclusion, and then maybe in the future pick it up again when things got released. The problem is we don't know when things are getting released. We could end it here and now, which we decided to do, and I will speak again on exactly the main reasoning behind that. But and then we had break out of the campaign. Basically, throw everything out, give Gary the middle finger, and say we're not gonna pay for any more supplements, and we're gonna do something of our own. So the third option, which might be the one closest at hand for many DMs, was not really an option for me, mainly because I'm going back to work in a couple of weeks. I'm going to be working full time again and constructing a campaign from scratch where I don't really have much to go on. It requires a very large time commitment as a DM to do this. I need to construct a whole world, political systems, and all that, and that takes a lot of time and effort. And I, as I told the group, I could not guarantee that I had that time. I could put in that effort with work starting up again. So that option, sadly, was not available. Then we were faced with the option of playing the book to its conclusion or calling it quits here. So we decided to call it quits here. We basically voted on it. It was a 5-to-1 vote for calling it quits here, and so we did. The main reasoning being, the main reasoning being that since we know it's going to end anyway, and it's going to end on a cliffhanger that probably no one is going to be really satisfied with, and since we don't even know when the continuation is going to be, or even if the following books and stories is going to be any interesting to us, sort of tying more into the Drow side of the story. And by the way, everything points at that the next book will be even more heavy on the dwarf side. there was a feeling that we would be wasting everyone's time. Because no one was really interested in the story, mainly because there wasn't really much of a story anymore. The main plot of book 1 for the Drow is to get rid of the Baroness. You know, she is the main enemy, and getting rid of her is the big reveal, or the big goal. And that was very clear, it's very defined, and as such it motivated the players to act, and it motivated the story forward in a good way. There isn't something like that in book 2 for the Drow. The one thing there is the rift, the elemental rift down under. That though is more of a... Oh, someone has messaged me on Skype here. I'm gonna mute that for a split second. There we go. What was I saying? Yes. There isn't an imminent threat or an overarching story really for the Drow in book 2. Not a clear one. It's more nebulous. There are hints for a grander story. There are hints of things going on, but they're basically so subtle that many of us thought they were well, not really much of a story, so to speak, and thus to not waste anyone's time and to stop on as high note as possible, we decided to call it quits. This does not mean that Throne of Night is over forever. We might pick it up at a future date. There are no guarantees for this, however. It very much depends on the release schedule of the rest of the books and their contents. If they don't have a any significant interesting plot points for the Drow, then that is what it is. But this is the decision we made. If there are any questions about this, feel free to post below in the comments, and I will certainly hang around and answer them as they come along. This does not mean anything for the ongoing Way of the Wicked campaign that Malika is running, and I'm posting on my channel. That one is still ongoing, and it shows no sign of stopping. Rather, the other way around. We are constantly bugging Malachi for extra sessions, and we're the poor man is being pressured quite a bit, I gotta say, because that one will continue to its definite conclusion as I see it right now. Yeah. Oh yeah, and also for the general problem with Throne of Night. With only 2 books out, the general premise, the larger threat is still unknown, even to me. If you contrast that with, like, say, Way of the Wicked or the original Kingmaker campaign, it was very clear that, all right, this is the overarching plot. This is the big thing that's going to happen. This is where everything of all of this builds up to, right? This is where it goes. And you can hint, you can foreshadow, you can hint, you can give the players, sort of a carrot to munch on, a breadcrumb trail to follow, and the story will follow as such. Throne of Night, this was not possible because I don't know where the grand story is. I don't know where all of this is headed. Yeah. So. Yeah, that is the basic decision. We decided to end it. We don't want to spend a lot of time with something that we have a sort of a disconnect with and not really feel too invested in, and also something that we don't know is even gonna have an end point ever. So yeah, that is the decision. As I said, it's the end of Throne of Night. It might come back in the future, no guarantees. It might, if it comes back, it's probably not going to be the same group setup, really. Well, that is something for a much later date to even consider. So I'm going to leave it at that. Way of the Wicked is still ongoing. You can, follow it on my channel and on Sheep's Hitbox channel. You can find those links if you go to my YouTube channel. They are around. There might be something else in the future, might be something else in the making. We sort of have a something of a slot when it comes now that Throne of Night ends. We sort of have a Saturday slot. We don't know what we're going to do with that as of yet. If anything, there might be something else coming up. So stay tuned. Keep watching Grimith's channel, of course, and keep an eye on my channel, and something might plop up in the future. But for now, this is it. This is the end. And thank you for watching. Thank you for participating. Thank you for investing your time in watching this. And even though it did not end in a way that we would have wished, I hope you enjoy the ride, and I hope you understand the decision that we made here. And with that, I will say goodbye, and I will see all of you in the next campaign.